Level 1, the candidate. You are sitting in an office in London. The building is unmarked. There is no sign on the door. The receptionist asked for your name and then made a phone call you couldn't hear. You waited 40 minutes in a chair that was uncomfortable on purpose. They want to see how you handle silence. They want to see if you fidget. They want to see if you check your phone. You don't do any of these things. You sit perfectly still. You wait. A man in his 50s comes out. He shakes your hand. His grip tells you everything you need to know about him. He spent 22 years in the British military. He probably commanded men in places that don't appear in any newspaper. He leads you down a hallway lined with closed doors. You have never been in a building this quiet. You sit across from him in a small conference room. There is a single folder on the table. The folder contains your entire life. Your service record from the Royal Marines. Your 8 years in the Special Boat Service. The languages you speak. Your medical file, including the surgery on your knee that you thought nobody knew about. The interview lasts 4 hours. He asks you about a hostage rescue you were part of in 2014. The details he knows should still be classified. You answer his questions truthfully. You learned a long time ago that lying to professionals is a faster way to fail. He asks you what you would do if a client refused to follow your advice during a negotiation. He asks you what you would do if a kidnapper threatened to kill a hostage. There are no right answers. There are only answers that prove you understand the work. You pass. They offer you a position as an associate consultant. You will not negotiate cases yet. You will support senior consultants. You will sit in operations rooms. You will listen. You will learn. The pay is good but not extraordinary. The real compensation is the knowledge itself. You sign documents that contain phrases like permanent lifetime confidentiality. You read every word. You sign them. You understand what they mean. You walk out of the building into the rain. You know your life just changed. Level 2, the associate. Your first deployment is to West Africa. A Canadian engineer working for a mining company has been taken from a road outside the capital. The kidnappers stopped his convoy with a fallen tree. The driver was wounded. You are not the lead consultant on this case. You are the second seat. Your job is to manage the operations log. Your job is to support the negotiator. Your job is to keep the family informed. The lead consultant is a French woman named Claire, who has done this work for 19 years. She speaks 4 languages fluently. She does not raise her voice. She does not panic. She has the most useful quality a kidnap negotiator can have. She can sound like the most reasonable person in any conversation. You watch her work. You take notes. You learn that the rhythm of these calls is everything. You learn that pauses do more than words. The kidnappers call on a Tuesday at 4 in the afternoon. Their first demand is $3 million. Claire does not laugh. She asks for proof of life. The kidnappers refuse. She tells them politely that no money will move until proof is provided. You ask her if that was risky. She tells you that everything in this work is risky. The only way to protect a hostage is to refuse to play a game where the rules favor the kidnappers. The proof of life arrives 48 hours later. A photograph. The engineer is gaunt but alive. His eyes are open. Claire calls his wife in Vancouver and tells her exactly what she needs to hear. She says he is alive. The negotiation takes 4 more weeks. The engineer comes home, weighing 30 pounds less. He is alive. You learn more in those 4 weeks than you learned in your previous decade of service. Level 3, the negotiator. You have your own cases now, 6 years in. Your first case as the lead consultant is in Mexico. A logistics executive has been taken from his SUV in a suburb of Monterrey. His wife was in the car. You arrive in Monterey on a flight that does not appear in your travel records. By the time you reach the family, you have memorized everything about the executive's life. His routines, his weaknesses, his enemies, his debts. The family wants to pay immediately. You explain to them, gently, that paying immediately is the worst possible thing they could do. Paying immediately tells the kidnappers that there is more money where this came from. Paying immediately means the family will be a target for the rest of their lives. You explain that the kidnappers expect resistance. The kidnappers expect a long process. The kidnappers will respect a family that negotiates. The wife cries. You sit with her. You let her cry. You do not rush her. The first call comes at 2 in the morning. The opening demand is $5 million. You instruct the husband to respond exactly as you have rehearsed. He sounds frightened. That is good. Frightened is honest. Frightened is what the kidnappers expect. He says he doesn't have that money. He says he has to talk to his family. He says he needs proof his brother is alive. You tell the husband he did exactly what was needed. You tell him the next 72 hours will be the hardest of his life. The kidnappers send a video 3 days later. The executive is on his knees. A man with a covered face stands behind him with a pistol. You tell her the video is theater. You tell her this is what they do. You tell her the video means he is alive and they want money. The negotiation lasts 41 days. The final number is $380,000. He comes home. He has lost weight. He has lost something else you cannot see. You leave Monterey on another flight that does not appear anywhere. Level 4, the regional specialist. You have moved past general cases. You are now a country specialist. Your country is somewhere most people will never go and never want to go. You speak the regional languages. You understand the tribal structures. You know which militant group is operating where. You know which faction split off from which other faction last year. You know which negotiator from which group can be trusted to follow through on an agreement. You know which routes are safe at which hours. You know which checkpoints are manned by people who can be paid. You handle cases that the general consultants cannot. A development worker taken by an Islamist group with no clear leadership structure. A journalist taken by a faction that doesn't actually want money, but wants something more complicated. That means you have to find a way to put a human being in a room with them. That means you have to find a human being willing to take that risk. You find that human being. Sometimes, the human being is you. You travel to villages with no roads. You sit on plastic chairs in the shade of acacia trees. You drink tea with men who have killed people and who will probably kill more people. You negotiate. You go home alive. Each time, you are slightly more surprised that you went home alive than the time before. Once, in Mali, the man across from you put his rifle on the table between you. He did not point it at you. He just placed it there. You finished your tea. You continued the conversation. You did not look at the rifle. You did not pretend it wasn't there. You simply made it irrelevant. That is the work. That is what nobody on the outside understands. 3 weeks later, the hostage came home. You went back to your hotel. You sat on the edge of the bed for an hour without moving. Level 5, the crisis manager. The cases you handle now are not single hostages. They are events. A maritime hijacking off the coast of Somalia where 22 crew members have been taken with valuable cargo. A mass kidnapping in Nigeria where 47 students have been pulled from a school by armed men. You no longer just negotiate. You manage. You run a team of consultants, intelligence analysts, logistics coordinators, medical advisors, family liaisons, and legal counsel. You report to corporate boards and insurance underwriters. Sometimes, you report to government officials who would prefer not to be in the room but cannot avoid it. You make decisions that involve millions of dollars and dozens of lives in time frames measured in hours. Sometimes, minutes. You learn to make those decisions without your hands shaking. You learned that the work is not about heroism. It is about systems. It is about checklists. You learned that the difference between a successful resolution and a catastrophe is often something small. A piece of information acted on 30 minutes earlier. You handle a maritime case that runs for 4 months. The crew is in the hold of their own ship, anchored off a coastline you have studied on satellite imagery for weeks. You handle a school case that ends with 39 of the 47 children released and 8 still missing. You handle the families of those 8 children. You sit in their homes. You eat food they prepare for you, because hospitality is more important to them than grief. You explain what you know and what you don't know. You do not lie to them. You also do not tell them everything. The line between protecting a family and patronizing them is a line you walk every day. You don't always walk it correctly. One mother asks you if her daughter suffered. You tell her the truth, which is that you don't know. She thanks you for not lying. She walks you to the door. She does not cry until after you have left. You drive back to your hotel. You do not sleep that night. You write your report at 4 in the morning. Writing is the only thing that makes the hours pass. Level 6, the corporate advisor. You are pulled out of the field, partially. You still consult on active cases when complexity demands it, but your primary role now is preventive. Multinational corporations pay your firm enormous retainers for one reason. They do not want to need you. They want you to design the systems that prevent kidnappings before they happen. You travel to corporate headquarters in Houston, in Geneva, in Singapore, in Tokyo. You sit in boardrooms. You explain risk. You explain that the world map their CFO is looking at is not the right map. You explain that a country that was safe last year is not safe this year. You explain that an executive who insists on driving himself to a meeting in Lagos is making a costly decision. That decision could cost the company $10 million and a human life. You design protocols, travel approvals, ground transportation requirements, communication procedures, proof-of-life templates that family members will use without ever knowing they exist. You vet local security contractors. You discover that many of them are connected to the same networks that conduct kidnappings. You replace those contractors with vetted ones. You train executives in awareness. You train them in surveillance detection. You train them in what to do in the first 30 seconds of an incident. The first 30 seconds determine almost everything. You also handle the part of this work that almost nobody talks about. You handle the legal architecture. Kidnap and ransom insurance is a complex product with strict conditions. The insurance does not pay if certain protocols were not followed. The insurance does not pay if the ransom was paid to a designated terrorist organization. The insurance does not pay if the company disclosed the existence of the policy. Disclosed policies create incentives. You navigate all of this. You make sure that when something does go wrong, the corporate response is correct from the first moment. You sit in meetings with general counsel. You explain why a single sentence in an internal email could expose the company to enormous liability. You write training manuals that nobody will ever know you wrote. You watch executives roll their eyes during your briefings. You watch some of those same executives sitting in your operations room 2 years later. They are weeping while their spouse is on the phone. You don't say "I told you so." You never say that. You just do the work. The next briefing you give, you say the same things you said before. You hope someone listens this time. Some of them do. Most of them don't. Level 7, the firm partner. You are now one of 7 partners at a global K&R firm. The firm has offices in 5 countries and operates in dozens more through a network of affiliates. You sit on the management committee. You make decisions about which cases the firm accepts and which it declines. You make decisions about pricing, about hiring, about expansion into markets that are more dangerous and more profitable. You also make decisions that have nothing to do with money. You decide whether the firm will take on the case of a journalist whose family cannot pay normal fees. You decide whether the firm will take on the case of an aid worker whose organization has no proper insurance. You decide whether the firm will accept retainer work from a corporation whose practices contribute to regional kidnappings. These decisions are not always clean. You have made decisions you are not proud of. You have made decisions where the financial logic and the moral logic pointed in opposite directions. You have been on both sides of that conflict at different points in your career. You have learned to live with your decisions. The alternative is to leave the work. Leaving the work means handing those decisions to someone who may make them worse. Your firm employs 80 consultants worldwide. You know all of them by name. You know which ones are at risk of burnout. You know which ones are drinking too much. You know which ones are about to leave for a competitor. You know which ones are barely holding their marriages together. You manage them, not because you enjoy management. You manage them because the firm only works if the people are taken care of. Nobody is going to take care of them if you don't. You hold quarterly check-ins that the consultants think are about performance. They are actually about survival. You are watching for the small signs. A consultant who used to laugh and doesn't anymore. A consultant who was sleeping at the office instead of going home. A consultant who took a case they should have refused. You attend industry conferences. You give carefully worded talks to corporate clients, insurance executives, and government officials. You never reveal anything specific. Your reputation is based partially on your discretion. It is also based on the quiet acknowledgement that you have handled some of the most complicated cases of the decade. Level 8, the institutional voice. You have published a book. The book does not contain operational details. It contains principles, frameworks, ways of thinking about risk that you have developed over 25 years. The book is read by people who will never need it. It is also read by people who desperately need it and don't yet know they will. You teach a course at a graduate program in security studies. Your students include former military officers, intelligence officers, corporate security executives, and the occasional curious young person. You are honest with the young ones. You tell them what the work costs. You tell them about the marriages you have seen end. You tell them about the colleagues who could not stop drinking. You tell them about the cases that ended badly and the way those cases live inside you. You tell them that the work is meaningful. You tell them that meaning is not the same as happiness. They need to understand the difference before they commit to this path. Some of them stay. Most of them don't. You consult for governments now, occasionally. Not in any formal capacity. You sit on advisory panels. You provide perspective on legislation related to kidnap and ransom payments. You weigh in on the question of whether ransoms should be legal. You weigh in on whether the official position of refusing to pay government ransoms saves lives or costs them. The data is more complicated than either side of the debate wants to admit. You explain the complications. The legislators nod. They go on to vote however their politics require them to vote. You are no longer surprised by this. You write op-eds. You give interviews to journalists you trust. You decline interviews with journalists you don't. The work has shifted from operational to influential. You have learned that influence is its own kind of operation. It has its own rules. It has its own risks. You testify in closed sessions of legislative committees from 3 different countries in a single year. You sit in a wood-paneled room in Washington 1 week. The next week you are in Brussels. The week after that you are in Westminster. You wear the same suit to all 3. The questions are similar. Your answers are similar. The outcomes are different in ways that matter to people whose names are not in any public record. Level 9, the elder. You are 65 years old. You have stopped traveling for active cases, except in extraordinary circumstances. Your knees no longer tolerate long flights. Your back protests after sitting too long in operations rooms. The work has aged you in ways that are visible and ways that are not. You have buried 6 colleagues in the last decade. 2 from cancer. 1 from suicide. 1 from a heart attack at 51. 1 from a small plane crash on a deployment. 1 from causes that are still officially unclear. You suspect they will remain unclear for as long as the case files remain sealed. You have buried friends. You have buried the wives and husbands of friends. You have attended graduations of children whose parents were kidnapped and recovered. You have attended memorials of children whose parents were kidnapped and not recovered. You have been to too many of both. You sit on the boards of 2 foundations. One supports the families of journalists who have been killed or kidnapped. The other supports the long-term mental health needs of former hostages. The ones who come home are not the same as the ones who were taken. The world they come back to is not equipped to understand the difference. You are good at this work. You are better at it than you were at the operational work. Partially because you have time now to think. Partially because you have learned what really helps a former hostage or a grieving family. The most valuable thing you can offer is presence. Not advice, not solutions, presence. You sit. You listen. You let silence do its work. You have learned that silence is its own kind of language. You think about retirement sometimes. You think about a house somewhere with a view and a garden and grandchildren. They will know you only as the slightly distracted older man who tells stories that don't quite add up. Your wife wants this. Your wife has wanted this for 20 years. You are trying to give it to her. You are not sure you know how. You meet a former hostage for coffee twice a year. He was taken in Lebanon when he was 28. He came home when he was 30. He is 47 now. He still cannot sleep with the lights off. You don't tell him this is normal. You sit with him. You let him talk. That is all he has ever asked of you. That is all you have ever asked of anyone. Level 10, the ghost. You retired 3 years ago. The retirement was supposed to be complete. It is not complete. The phone still rings. Old colleagues calling for advice on cases you would have run yourself a decade ago. Government officials calling about policy questions. Journalists calling about cases that ended 20 years ago and that someone is finally writing about. You answer some of the calls. You let others go to voicemail. You have earned the right to choose. You have earned the right to choose. Your house has a view. Your wife has her garden. Your grandchildren do come to visit. They are loud and they are wonderful. They are also strangers in a way you have made peace with. You were not present for most of their parents' childhoods. You cannot get that back. You can only be present now. You walk in the mornings. The path goes along a river. You have learned to notice things that are not threats. Birds, light on water, the sound of a particular kind of wind through a particular kind of tree. For decades, you noticed only what could hurt you. You are learning a different way of noticing. It is harder than you expected. It is also better. You sleep most nights. Some nights you don't. On those nights, you sit on the porch. You watch the sky get lighter in degrees you used to be too busy to notice. You think about the cases. The 47 children. The 8 who never came home. The journalist in Yemen. The aid worker in Mali. The engineer who weighed 30 pounds less when he came home and never weighed the same again. The ones who came home broken and the ones who came home and never quite came home. You carry them. You will carry them. There is nowhere to put them down. You meet sometimes with younger consultants. They come to your house. They drink your coffee. They look around at the books on your shelves. They ask you questions you have heard 1,000 times. You answer the ones you can answer. You tell them what you have learned. You tell them what you wish someone had told you. You tell them that the work is real and the cost is real, and both are true at once. They nod the way you nodded when someone told you the same thing 30 years ago. They go back to their lives. They will learn the rest themselves. Somewhere right now, a man is being pulled from a vehicle in a country he should not have entered. His phone is taken. A bag is put over his head. His family does not know yet. His company does not know yet. In a few hours, a phone will ring in an office in London. A consultant will pick up. The work will begin again. You will not be on that call. You don't need to be. There are people now who learned from the people who learned from you. The chain is intact. That is what you built. That is what remains. The cycle continues. Level 1, the candidate. You are sitting in an office in London. The building is unmarked. There is no sign on the door. The receptionist asked for your name and then made a phone call you couldn't hear. You waited 40 minutes in a chair that was uncomfortable on purpose. They want to see how you handle silence. They want to see if you fidget. They want to see if you check your phone. You don't do any of these things. You sit perfectly still. You wait. A man in his 50s comes out. He shakes your hand. His grip tells you everything you need to know about him. He spent 22 years in the British military. He probably commanded men in places that don't appear in any newspaper. He leads you down a hallway lined with closed doors. You have never been in a building this quiet. You sit across from him in a small conference room. There is a single folder on the table. The folder contains your entire life. Your service record from the Royal Marines. Your 8 years in the Special Boat Service. The languages you speak. Your medical file, including the surgery on your knee that you thought nobody knew about. The interview lasts 4 hours. He asks you about a hostage rescue you were part of in 2014. The details he knows should still be classified. You answer his questions truthfully. You learned a long time ago that lying to professionals is a faster way to fail. He asks you what you would do if a client refused to follow your advice during a negotiation. He asks you what you would do if a kidnapper threatened to kill a hostage. There are no right answers. There are only answers that prove you understand the work. You pass. They offer you a position as an associate consultant. You will not negotiate cases yet. You will support senior consultants. You will sit in operations rooms. You will listen. You will learn. The pay is good but not extraordinary. The real compensation is the knowledge itself. You sign documents that contain phrases like permanent lifetime confidentiality. You read every word. You sign them. You understand what they mean. You walk out of the building into the rain. You know your life just changed. Level 2, the associate. Your first deployment is to West Africa.